Hey y'all, this is Thoughts Between Shots, a storytelling podcast where one great question leads to one unforgettable story. I'm your host, Nammy Sirur, and every episode I ask my guests to tell a story, and then we break it down to talk about why it worked, why it was so effective. So if you want to learn to tell better stories, ask more thoughtful questions, or really just become more effective communicators, you're in the right place. Today, we have one of those solo episodes again, where it's just me shooting the breeze with you one-on-one about all things storytelling. And I use these episodes to tell my own stories, to demonstrate storytelling in action. Today, I have something that became sort of a formative thing for us when we first started our business. But first, a question. Tell me about a time when you failed spectacularly and lived to tell the tale. Okay, so this was a time when we had just started our old business. So if you don't know my backstory, I used to have a video marketing agency called Misfit Communications, and that was started off the backs of a YouTube channel that my best friend Pavi and I had started back in 2016 called The 9 to 5 Misfits. We made 100 videos in a year and a half. Eventually, people started to hire us to make videos for them. So that's when our company, our video marketing agency, Misfit Communications, was born. Now, when we first started, we thought, let's go network. We were going to make these amazing videos for startups, and let's go to California where most of them are concentrated. So we head to San Francisco, and one day I'm at this coffee shop. I still remember this. You know, when you go to a coffee shop and they overfill your coffee cup, and then you're walking you're trying to figure out the physics of how not to spill it while walking from the counter to your table. I was doing that. I set my coffee cup down, I take a big gulp of it, and I look at my screen and almost do a spit take. Because what I see is a message from someone who's in California asking about our services. So here's what happened. About a week before we went on this California trip, I had posted a video to my LinkedIn, a thought leadership video, which went kind of viral. So by the time we got to California, it had racked up about 30,000 views, and there were lots of comments and all of this stuff. So it was getting a lot of traction. And one person in particular had commented on the video. I think I had some sort of interaction with her. And then she hit me up in my DMs. She introduces herself as, "Hi, I'm CJ." Of course, I've changed her name for privacy purposes. "I have a startup that's at the incubator at University of Berkeley, and we are looking for someone to create a promo video for us. Are you available, and do you happen to be in this part of town?" Imagine our luck, okay? I'm thinking this is the most serendipitous thing ever, because what are the chances we just happen to be in California, in San Francisco right now? We're like 45 minutes away from Berkeley. We just need to hop on a train. So of course we're going to say yes. So we tell a little white lie. We say, yes, we're 45 minutes away, which we are, but we say we're traveling with our equipment and we can come meet you today. Let's sketch out the idea of this video, and we can film your video within the next day or two, because we're actually only here for a couple more days. Our thinking is, we'll go meet her, we'll go rent, we'll go buy some equipment from Best Buy, film her video, immediately return it, and then be on our merry way. Hustle mentality, right? So great. She says, yes, I'm on campus right now. Come meet me this afternoon. We are so excited, y'all. This was our big break. Imagine, we've just started this company. We're babies. We've just gotten incorporated like a week ago. And now we're already landing our first client. What? Success story. Oh my God. Anyway, so we hop on this train. We go meet CJ. And she seems quite unassuming. She's this tiny woman. She tells us about her product, and her team isn't there that day. So we talked to her for about half an hour. We hit it off. Things seem to be going really well. We ask her a series of questions about her company and her team, but she tells us all about everything she wants to cover in this video. And we say, okay, well, do you have a filming location in mind? So she says, I actually live about maybe 15, 20 minutes away. We can actually go drive there and check out the space. We say, great, because to us, we like working with natural light. And she tells us, my house has a lot of windows, all of this stuff. Awesome. So we get in her car, which, mind you, this is 2018. She has a Tesla. Teslas are not very common at this time. It's a huge status symbol at this point. This is not 2025. Now our ideas of Teslas very different. Anyway, so she has a Tesla and she drives us to her house, which is this big house. And it turns out we do a little bit of research on this woman beforehand, and it turns out that she's worked with some of the biggest, and I'm talking the biggest names in Silicon Valley early on. She's a middle-aged woman, so she's worked with some huge names early in her career. She has stock in some of the biggest companies back when they were babies, and now she's amassed this huge fortune. So we're feeling really good because this seems like a done deal. We've already scoped out the location, we've talked about logistics, we've talked about, okay, we're going to send you the script at 7 a.m. Then at 12 we'll come film the video. All of this stuff, everything is falling into place. She drops us to the station, and once we get back to San Francisco, the first thing we do is go to Best Buy, buy a bunch of equipment, and then go to the place that we're staying. Pavi starts to charge everything, make sure everything is in working order for the next day, and I start to write the script. I don't usually write scripts in a day. It usually takes me about 2 weeks at this point to write a full script because I have lots of research to do. I have to think about, okay, my interview with this person, which is pretty robust, and then I have to gather all this research and all this data about their stuff so I can form a fully formed picture. But because we're on a limited timeline, I get to work immediately. I work till about 2 a.m. on this script and I send it out. 7 a.m., I wake up to an email from CJ. It says, hey, Nammy and Pavi, I just talked to my team and they're not on board with this idea for the video. They also feel it's too expensive and that it's not the right time to be filming a video. So I'm sorry, but this project is not going to go through. Now you're probably thinking, but Nammy, she can't do that because surely she must have signed a contract, right? Right? Nope. Because we had just started this company and we had barely just incorporated it, we didn't have contracts in place yet. We were so new that we were still learning all this stuff. We put in all this work, we got our hopes up, no contract in place. So when she sent us this email, we had no recourse. We sent her a bunch of follow-up emails being like, look, everything's sketched out, we can work with you on price, blah, blah. Nothing. Crickets. Never heard from her again. The only silver lining was that we were able to go to Best Buy and return all the equipment, and they actually let us return it, because otherwise that would have been the single most expensive lesson I've ever learned. Needless to say, we went back to Austin, dejected, absolutely heartbroken, tail between our legs, feeling like utter failures. What do you think the first thing we do? We made a damn contract and we sketched out our entire process for, okay, this is exactly how it's going to work. You best believe we made an airtight contract by the end of this and had an airtight process that we followed to the T just because of CJ in her Tesla. Moral of the story, nothing good comes from engaging with a Tesla driver. I'm just kidding, y'all. I have lots of friends who drive Teslas, unfortunately. But real moral of the story, always have a damn contract in place. So that was my story. And I mean, it sucked, but it was better to learn at that early in the business than way later when we would have been completely screwed. Okay, so now let's break down the story. Let's talk about the anatomy of a good story, as we do with all of these solo episodes. A few things I tried to do differently this time. I'm hoping it came through because this is something I personally have been trying to work on a lot more, which is vocal variety. Now, if you don't know what vocal variety is, it's basically just changing up your tonality. Because here's the thing. I don't know if you've heard of this thing called the 738-55 rule. And what this means is when you're speaking to someone, when you're communicating with your counterpart, they're paying attention to different things, right? Only 7% of it is the words you're speaking. 38% of it is your tonality, how you speak, your inflection, how many pauses you have, how fast or slow you're speaking, how loud or soft you're speaking, all of those things. So how your voice sounds, essentially your tonality. And then 55% of it is your body language. So they're looking at your facial expressions, how you're carrying yourself while you're speaking. So all of those things go into how they're perceiving you, which means only 7% of it is what you're saying, and 93% of it is how you're saying it through your verbal and non-verbal cues. Now, there's some debate on whether this is accurate for like every interaction, but especially when you're saying something where you want somebody to feel a certain way, how you say it makes a huge difference. It's not untrue that how you say what you say carries a lot more weight than what you say. Because, case in point, if I said something like, wow, I'm so excited, that is a completely different feeling, and it's going to convey something completely different than if I say, oh my God, I'm so excited, right? Same words, different tonality and body language, which makes the meaning completely different. So that's what the 73855 rule is essentially saying. Now, that is something that I'm trying to work on as a speaker, because I feel like, especially when I'm doing these solo episodes, right? And I don't have somebody's energy to feed off, it's so much harder to convey emotion, because I'm talking to a lens right now. So it just feels weird because I'm looking at a lens and I'm trying to be all animated, and it just sounds really strange when I'm sitting in a room alone. My dog is right here being like, "Meow," and then my husband's outside being like, what is happening? What is this crazy person doing? So, as a speaker, as a podcaster, I've noticed that one thing I need to work on is my tonality and my inflection and all of that stuff, especially when it's just me. Because back in the day, I used to create a lot of content, whether I was on stage or on camera. I always had my co founder with me. So I was always bouncing off somebody else's energy. And as an extrovert, especially, like I look for that. Even in social situations, I get my energy from being around people. If it's just me by myself, I'm a lot more, I don't know, just, I'm not as animated if I'm just alone, which I guess most of us are. So that is one thing I'm working on with my own delivery, with my on stage and on screen presence. Okay, but what does that mean for you? When you're giving a presentation, or when you're creating your own content, or maybe you're on a podcast or whatever it is, remember that your words matter, but how you say those words matter way more. And that's what I'm trying to teach right now. I have a series of workshops coming up. I just did a workshop with another Fortune 500 company, and that was a big part of it, was taking them through these vocal variety exercises, demonstrating how the meaning of something changes the way you say it. Let me know if that's something that's interesting to you, if you've ever heard of this before, or if this is completely new information. In which case, excellent, I've done my work in teaching you something new. So that is one thing I want you to keep in mind. Every time you're telling a story, the story structure and how you craft that story, super important, but how you tell it is way more important. Now, the other thing that I want you to keep in mind, speaking of the actual words, is the descriptive language. The more descriptive your language is, the easier it sticks in your audience's brain. So you may have noticed when I was talking about, okay, I was at this coffee shop, I was holding this mug that was overfull, and I was kind of the physics of balancing it as I'm walking to the desk or my whatever, my table. Everyone has been in that situation. If you've been to a coffee shop, you've been in that situation before. So that those little things where you can paint a picture for your audience and you can put them in that scene with you, and you can use relatable language that immediately helps them connect. That is so key. So anytime you're thinking of how to craft a story, and it doesn't have to be a story for a stage, but anytime you're just giving a presentation, or you're in line with somebody just chatting, or you're on a date, anytime you're trying to just talk about something where you're trying to be heard and be memorable, These are the little tips and tricks that you can use. Using vocal inflection, playing with your voice as an instrument, adding those descriptive elements, that descriptive language that can paint a picture and put them in that scene. All of that stuff is important. Okay, another way to be a good storyteller and by proxy be a good conversationalist is to give some background information for the person you're communicating with to have something to go off. You want to give them some reason to ask you a follow up question or something intriguing that gets them to sit up and listen. Because, okay, let me demonstrate. If somebody says, "Hey, Nami, what did you have for breakfast today?" If I just say, "A breakfast taco," cool. What can they do with that? At most, they'll be like, "Oh, okay, wow, nice." Or they'll say, "What was in that taco?" But instead, if I say something like, "Oh, I was meeting two of my good friends today for breakfast. We do this monthly meetup where we talk about our goals and all of this stuff. And so I met up with them at Central Market, which is one of my favorite grocery stores in Austin. And I got their breakfast taco, which was amazing." Now I have so many more details that my counterpart can sort of pick up and ask me about. And it's just a more interesting story, right? Now they're like, "Oh, okay, cool. She meets up once a month with her friends. She has this mastermind. She loves tacos." There's so much, unless you're a spy and now you can use this against me. In most cases, this is a good thing to offer up these details. Okay, so I guess this was a pretty meandering episode, but there are a few things I hope you took away, which is number one, how to craft a good story with descriptive language that puts the audience in that scene with you and makes those examples relatable enough for them to be memorable. Secondly, vocal variety and body language, how to use them to enhance your story, because often how you say your words matter more than the actual words you say. So that's a wrap on this episode of Thoughts Between Shots. If you laughed, cried, got goosebumps, learned something sneaky useful, share it with your people, please. And if you have a future storyteller or a killer question to ask, hit me up in the DMs. I'm always on LinkedIn. As always, keep being curious and keep telling good stories. Bye.